you doing, everybody, on this Friday edition of the Make the Money and Run podcast? Vasu Party, Casey Freeleft, Charlie O here for Friday, April 16th, 2021. Coming up, Major League Baseball. We got a big group of series of games coming up this weekend. A couple more rainouts in baseball. The NBA winding down its season. Some teams kind of taking it easy, as evidenced by the Utah Jazz playing a 1 o'clock Mountain Time game this afternoon, getting blown out by the Indiana Pacers at home, of all places. And, of course, we got NBA news and NBA notes and Major League Baseball news and notes. By the way, the Colorado Avalanche, if you're looking at hockey, the best team to take in the NHL right now, a plus 53 in goal differential as we wind down the regular season for hockey. So start looking at that as you go forward. Plus 53 in a shortened season. That's playing some defense. That's goaltending right there for those non-hockey aficionados. Hello, everybody. Vasu Party, Charlie O. Casey Freelove. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast powered by Staples Media for Friday, April 16th, 2021. What a weekend we've got in terms of baseball. Week 3 coming up in the NBA, and then of course the NBA is winding down the playoffs, and then like I said, hockey's winding down as well too. When the playoffs get going, we'll start going to hockey. As we get going here, let me give you an update on a couple of games that have started the traditional Friday baseball in Chicago. The Atlanta Braves, last check in the top of the 5th inning, have a 4-1 lead on the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs, who have been hitting under 200 the last 10 games. They were actually favored in this game against Atlanta, 112 with a total of 8. Zach Davies hit for Atlanta. Kyle Wright hit 4 Chicago batters in this game, and they still have not been able to push across more than 1 run. Ronald Acuna, who's hitting 444 for the year, 1 for 2 with 2 more RBIs. He's got 16 on the year right now. And in the NBA, they're playing a 1 o'clock Mountain Time game, as I said, but the Utah Jazz have not woken up. They're getting blown out by the 9th seed Indiana Pacers of the Eastern Conference, 61-49 at the half, I believe is the score. Yeah, 69-56 at the half. Indiana only a 10.5-point underdog, the total of 234 in that game. So you're looking pretty good right now if you've got Indiana. This is us right here. As I said, you can check us out every Monday, Thursday, and Friday, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific, right here on Facebook Live, Stables Media YouTube page. If you miss any of the live broadcasts, then you're not watching with us right now. You can download, subscribe on Apple and Spotify and anywhere you get your podcasts out there. In fact, we're getting requests from other podcast companies to join their podcast companies. So check it out wherever you get your podcasts, and we're there. Gentlemen, long introduction. Sorry, but how are you? I want to make sure we get everybody in. Casey, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, but as soon as you kind of wet my beak about the Colorado Avalanche, I read that they're out for 3 games because of COVID. They're not going to play till next Thursday now. They just canceled 3 games. Thank you, hockey. And guys, I know we have a lot of places we want to bounce around. Let's throw around a little hockey banner to start here. The Vancouver Canucks had a disastrous last 3 weeks as far as COVID. They missed a whole bunch of games. The Avalanche now one of the best teams to watch in hockey, and also having problems. My question to you, Chuck, is it time to think about bubbling up? 1 Western bubble, 1 Eastern bubble once we get to the playoffs? Because it seems to me this is all a result of excessive travel, and travel's the one kind of elephant in the room you can't avoid, whether you're eating at a restaurant, at the hotel. Even if you're trying to obey orders, it doesn't mean that somebody that has this dreaded disease couldn't be around you. And I don't mean to go all doom and gloom, but I think the NHL has the ability, if they want to bubble up, because they don't have a fans in a lot of the stadiums anyway. So let's make sure that they get these playoffs in fairly.
Yeah, Casey, I think that's a great idea because, there's 2 things happening here right now. Gosh, I'm going to sound like I'm been hanging with Dr. Fauci, and I would love to because I think he's really a cool guy. But I've been watching a little bit about what's going on. Number one is that the amount of vaccine available right now for the population is dropping because they've had to pull some of them back a little bit. So the number of people being vaccinated right now is going to drop pretty dramatically for a little bit. And the other thing is that a couple of these strains that are coming over, although the good news is not the fatality rate from them isn't going to jump, they're really more contagious than what the initial strains were. So a lot of people are going to get sick from them and easier than they have before. So your point's well taken that travel is going to become more difficult for a short period of time until more of the population gets vaccinated. So I would think the smart thing is to bubble up because, I'm really surprised the Canucks were able to even get back into playing after being off that long. And, nobody did the bubble better than the NHL last year. I mean, they were phenomenal at it. And I think they can pull that off very quickly. And they won't be disappointing a ton of fans. And I think they should immediately.
What do you think, boss?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see because now a lot of the Canadian, the numbers have gone up. Speaking to our colleague Joe Madden in Canada, by the way, the Hustle and Grind show going really well on Stables Media. Lots of COVID issues starting to re-emerge from a Havoc standpoint in Canada because they were in a certain place and now it's kind of coming back up. Whereas in the States, it's going down a little bit and it's hit the Vancouver Canucks hard. I know the numbers are up in Canada, so I don't know exactly where we go from that. The only positive thing I can say out of that is that the numbers we're at in California is coming down and the vaccines are out there. My second vaccine is going to be on the 29th here in Northern California. So after 2 weeks from there, I should be fully certified mentally. I'm not so sure, but definitely physically, I'll be good to go. Let's hit some MLB notes. By the way, the only good thing about the Avalanche being able to rest for these 3 days is that their goal differential will not change after these next 3 days. So that's the way to go. So they'll still be a plus 53 going into next week. All right. Speaking of COVID, we'll hit the MLB here a little bit. Casey was not with us yesterday, but I'm sure he knows the news as well. 5 Houston Astros are out for COVID reasons and protocol, including Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman. They got off to a hot start. I don't know if the COVID affected them health-wise. They just didn't have the energy because they went through a long lull there, including the A's series at home, and then they lost 3 more after that. From that point on, Andrelton Simmons declined the vaccine for the Minnesota Twins last Sunday when they were doing it in the locker room on Sunday morning before their game, and now he's tested for COVID. Nobody else has. I guess I don't know why. I don't want to tell anybody to take the COVID because these are all personal choices, but these things are still popping up, and we still got to be careful with everything going on. And I think that's just the way to go from that standpoint. So, Casey, you were the Astros guy at one point, but Altuve and Bregman, Yordan Alvarez, also one of the players out as well too. So, Martin Maldonado, their catcher, those are the main guys that have gotten this. I mean, how bad is this going to be from a baseball standpoint, Casey?
I think they're in a lot of trouble. I mean, we were all kind of surprised that the A's took that series against them last weekend, and maybe the COVID played into it in its early stages. But then to lose 3 straight home games against Detroit and not even be competitive. I mean, they lost 6-2, 8-2, and 6-4, including Zach Greinke taking a loss there. So I think the lack of offense is really going to hurt them. The one thing they have going for them is that they're playing a Mariners team that we're still trying to figure out how good they are. They've got an impressive record. I might actually even look at them tonight. But then they got a couple against Colorado before returning home to take on the Angels and the Mariners. So those are 2 guys. If you ask me which 2 guys would I not want out of the lineup outside of Carlos Correa, it would definitely be Altuve and Bregman. I mean, those are superstar players that they've got there. And I think, Chuck, we've touched on this all season. The Astros pitching was not going to be their strongest suit this year. Obviously, we knew they were going to lean on scoring a lot of runs, and they're totally capable when they're fully healthy. But look, we can all hate on the Astros for what they did. It's really depressing as a fan. And again, we're trying to gamble on these games. And when you find out that COVID is just kind of creeping its way back into professional sports, it makes you worry a little bit. It makes you worry about not just baseball, but kind of sports at large. So in a way, I feel bad for the Astros. And I think if you're a Mariners fan, you've got to feel pretty confident about this weekend series ahead.
Yeah, absolutely, Casey. And, it's just one more factor to try to put into your wagering, and figure out. It's like you said, how do you know when somebody's coming down with COVID, and how is that making them feel? Because they may not know they're coming down with it either, because nobody really understands how you're feeling. I mean, I know they get rapid testing and all this other kind of stuff, but does it make you feel bad, when before you're coming down with it? I don't know. I've never had it. So I don't know. But the other thing is, guys, I think the anxiety level for these guys has got to be And for the women, about to play the WNBA season, and the women playing soccer right now in the new professional women's soccer league. Having to travel and do these kind of things, the anxiety level's got to be up. And when you're anxious, that diverts focus, and that's a factor that's in there. I mean, you look at the Astros right now. They've got a +11 in run differential, and they've lost 5 games in a row. I mean, that's crazy. That is absolutely nuts. How do you factor that into your wagering stats and then say, this is how I want to wager on this game? That is absolutely nuts.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how it goes from here, because the one thing that we always talked about, and this has been going on, it's been a nouveau term for the last 35, 40 years, is how stress affects. So when you're worried about something that may or may not be there, if you've ever had a cold and you're missing work and you got to pay your bills and stuff like that, and you're stressed out on different things, you're not going to get healthier from a cold by stressing out. You have to rest and you have to not think about these things. And so that's kind of the way that I'd have to look at that. But hopefully they all feel better. And as far as the Astros for 2017, I mean, I still talk to people that are still upset about the tuck rule from 2000. So it's time to move on. Even for this Dodgers fan, it's time to move on here a little bit. 5 years later, we'll get over that. Speaking of those Dodgers, and this will be the first segment of the show for me. So if you want to scratch this out on the subscription of the podcast, scratch this 5 minutes out of just homerism type talk right now. Casey and Charlie are be the neutral one. Name that tune for the Dodgers on how many runs they're going to score every night, because whatever they need, they get it. 2-0 down to the Rockies. They get a Justin Turner home run, take a 3-2 lead. They throw the ball around the infield a little bit. They down 5-3. And then all of a sudden, Max Muncy, who we talked about earlier in the week, as one of the guys that the Dodgers brought in as a free agent when nobody wanted him, hits a 3-run home run, and then they get a 7-5 victory. Oh, David Price out of the bullpen, his first save in about 11 years since 2008, since he was Tampa Bay Rays rookie, Devil Rays rookie. That's how long ago it was, Tampa Bay Devil Rays. They get a 7-5 victory over Colorado, sweep Colorado. They go into their series with Walker Buehler, the ace, going up against the Padres tonight. And I did not see, apparently there's some talk that Fernando Tatis is going to be back in the lineup. I don't know how you can be back in that lineup, but apparently that's a possibility that he's going to come back sooner than later. So they're going to San Diego. The San Francisco Giants are 8-4. They're 4th in the National League in ERA. They go to Miami, who just took 3 out of 4 from the Atlanta Braves. By the way, have a 4-2 lead now in the 5th inning on the Cubs in Wrigley. And then the Oakland A's, 5-game winning streak. St. Louis, Philadelphia, another big series this weekend. Tampa Bay, who took 2 out of 3 from the Yankees. They are going to New York this weekend. They were minus 24 coming into today in run differential. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Rangers. And then the Toronto Blue Jays visit the first place Kansas City Royals. After Kansas City gets a victory, they're a half a game up in the American League Central, ahead of the White Sox, ahead of the Indians, ahead of everybody in that division. And then we mentioned the Mets and Colorado postponed, and the Red Sox and White Sox postponed. Minnesota broke the 9-game winning streak for the Red Sox yesterday afternoon in a bottom of the 9th single by Max Kepler. Casey, what do you like about baseball this weekend? Where are we going with this?
Well, I'm beyond excited for this Dodgers-Padres series, because this is the main event. I mean, if you remember, there was some bad blood between these two in the playoffs last year, and I think it'll probably continue. It's an interesting spot for the Padres, though, as far as their decision-making around how they want to put this together, because Ryan Weathers is making his first career start, I believe. Yeah, because he appeared last year in 3 games. And then Walker Buehler, he's on 6 days rest, and he gave up 3 runs over 5 innings in his other start against the Padres last season. So I think if you're a Dodgers fan, you're looking to get on the board early, maybe take a look at the first 5. As you were sitting there talking, I'm already thinking about changing my pick over here from Dodgers game over to Dodgers first 5, because I think that San Diego might be forced to go to their bullpen. And if they do, Chuck, that's one of their big strengths, 1.94 to lead Major League Baseball right now. There's also something about Petco Park. I'd be real leery about the day games on Saturday and Sunday. I'm not sure how the schedule sets up. I'd have to look, but something about San Diego and day games scares me if I'm betting on the Dodgers. But tonight, I feel like LA set it up perfectly to have their best 3 pitchers basically going this weekend. The Dodgers offense is obviously just fine, and they know how to hit in the clutch. They've been the only team, Charlie, that has really done what we thought they were supposed to do. Because if I look at the standings across baseball, it's just a bunch of mediocrity, 6-6 scattered all across the league. Meanwhile, the Dodgers come out here and take care of business. But if you get Tatis back, that could kind of throw a wrench in the whole plan. And I'm with Vasu, where I can't believe we're even reading possibly that Fernando Tatis is going to be playing, because it seemed like this is the kind of injury they were going to have to monitor all year, and they weren't sure what his availability would be, if it's going to be a long-term thing. I know that he's chomping at the bit to get out there and play against LA. And I think from a gambling perspective, a lot of people probably bet one of these two teams to win their division, one of these two teams to win the National League. So this is a good kind of feel them out series. I'm very excited about it. I mean, I would watch it anyway because I like watching the Dodgers play. I like seeing good baseball. But I think with the increase in fans as well in San Diego tonight, there will be a 33% capacity at the stadium. San Diego's more geeked up for this than LA, and I think they might come out and, really try and put it on early. The thing is Walker Buehler's not one that you typically, quote, put it on. So I think that a little bit of an advantage to LA tonight, and really they appear to be the better team thus far, and their record shows it.
Yeah, Casey, you made several good points there. And one of the things that I think is important to remember about Petco Park is that Petco Park is a good pitcher's park. I mean, they have altered the dimensions there 3 different times to try to make it a better hitter's park, because it's a good pitcher's park. And it's a lot like the Oakland Coliseum and a lot like Oracle Park, in the sense that at night it becomes even more difficult to hit home runs in that park. For folks that that have never visited the West Coast, at night there is an overcast that comes in off the ocean and makes for a real cloud cover that comes over. It drops the barometric pressure, creates a heavy air, and the ball doesn't fly as well. Now, I know you didn't come here to have a weather lesson, but I'm telling you, it makes it.
Casey's bag. That's Casey's bag every week. Trust me on that one.
It makes it tougher to hit a home run. Daytime, the ball will fly there because you get a nice sea breeze and the air gets thinner and the ball will start to fly. But at nighttime, and I've been there both for day games and night games in that ballpark, it is tough to hit a ball out of there. You'll almost have to hit it right down the line in order to do that. And again, you've got Buehler on. I have to do that every time. It's just mandatory on the mound, and that's going to even make it that much tougher in a park where it's tough to hit anyway.
That's about a party. Casey Freelove, Charlie, the Make Money Run podcast, powered by Staples Media. Am I out there? Oh, you guys hear me okay? I thought I was out on the internet there for a second.
No, we got you.
Okay, just checking. Anyway, powered by Staples Media. Thanks to everybody on Facebook Live, Staples Media YouTube page. If you missed any of the broadcasts, you can download, subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Braves have a 4-2 lead on the Cubs, and the halftime score, they've gone out of half now. The Indiana Pacers are blowing that lead 71-65 with about 9 minutes to go in the third quarter at Utah, 77-67. Now, all right, let's move on to the games itself. We've already talked about the Dodgers game itself. Let's hit the other National League games here as we go along. We've got Washington and Arizona. We've got the Phillies and Cardinals, as we said. We've got the San Francisco Giants at Miami, and then for this first set of games. So, Casey, I'll let you take it wherever you want to go with that.
Well, I'm just taking a look at, I'm always obsessed with what the public's doing and trying to figure out these consensus odds. Here's the thing about that Arizona-Washington game that's a little dangerous. 63% of the money is on Scherzer at basically minus $1.80. And again, folks, I know we need to spend more time on line analysis because betting baseball, you got to shop. You got to find the best lines. These books are trying to jack you up by about an extra 5 cents or 10 cents just to kind of grind out their profit. I don't know about all that money going on the Nats. Really, these aren't very good teams, so I'm surprised this over-under isn't at 8.5 or 9. The total's at 8 right now. 56% of the cash is going over in that one. St. Louis and Philly, the home team being backed here, I think they've been a pleasant surprise for people out there in the state of Pennsylvania. Playing really good baseball off the bat. 57% of the cash on the Phillies tonight, minus $1.37, $1.40, depending on where you're shopping. Another total at 8. With a little bit of the public money going over. then this Giants and Marlins series, Miami is getting some money. They're a home dog, and they're a hard team to figure out because basically you can hardly name any players on their team. Even when you watch them, you're just like, who are these guys? It's like watching the Indians in Major League, the movie. But 53% of the public cash is on the Marlins tonight, but a big number, 62% of the money going under that 8.5 total, which I find interesting because both these teams have the potential to get into a 2-0 game, and they also have the potential to probably score 10 runs between them. I'm wondering, Charlie, do you think that theory holds up down there? I know the Marlins play inside, but it's still the same air that's coming off the ocean. You think there's anything to that as far as day-night splits with higher totals? I'd have to dig a little deeper because I don't follow the Marlins as closely as other teams. But I think if you're a Giants fan, you're probably really pleasantly surprised at their start, second place in the NL West, doing it with guys that, if you don't live on the West Coast, you might not know as well. So this is kind of a fun series, a getting to know you series, if you will, going on tonight out there in Miami.
Well, Casey, I just happen to have a little factoid for you about this. This is perfect. It's like a setup here, and we didn't set it up. The total has gone under in 5 of the Giants' last 5 games when playing in Miami. So I think the factor is there that it is inside, and you've got to remember it's inside. You have the air conditioning fighting the humidity, so you've got all of that going on, and part of that may be too. And I've never been in that stadium. In fact, Vasu, we'll have to ask Roxy Bernstein about that the next time we see him, because Roxy called the games there in Miami for a couple of years, about the air conditioning system and how that affects fly balls there. Because in every dome stadium, the air conditioning does affect the way the fly balls work in those situations, and also affect how the pitches go, depending on how they run the system. But San Francisco has not liked it there because they go under.
They also remember 2003. I know it's a long time ago, but the Marlins, when they won in 03, took out the Giants, that 100-win team that year in 2003, coming off the World Series year. I'll be interested in that game. The one series I'll actually be interested in, it's actually kind of funny, even though they're the Pittsburgh Pirates. For some reason, the Pittsburgh Pirates go into Milwaukee, and they win games. JT Brubaker on the mound against Adrian Hauser. Adrian Hauser pitched well against the Cardinals on Sunday. The Brewers got 2 out of 3 against St. Louis. They took 2 out of 3 against the Cubs. They're better than their 7-5 record. They're hitting the ball. JT Brubaker, first Pittsburgh Pirates pitcher in 30 years to have 3 RBIs in his first 2 games started in the major league. So he did that against the Cubs last weekend. So he can hit as well, too. And this line, considering how good or how bad Pittsburgh is, seems a little low for me for the Milwaukee Brewers being at 143 at home. And, of course, I mean, we could take the rest of the show to talk about the Dodgers, but we'll move on. But I'm very interested in terms of the Milwaukee Brewers, Pittsburgh Pirates, because don't automatically assume that the Brewers are going to win tonight, because Brubaker pitches well. He shut down the Cubs who aren't hitting also. And that total of 8 might right be around the number that it should be. All right, that's about a party. Casey Freelove, Charlie O, the Make the Money and Run podcast. Let's move on to the American League games. We've got, the Yankees are hosting Tampa Bay. They lost 2 out of 3 to Tampa last weekend. The Texas Rangers have been hot all of a sudden. Tampa's struggling. They can't hit the ball. Texas took 2 out of 3 to Tampa. Mike Fultonevich, a name from the Atlanta Braves, past glory, is there. And then Kansas City in first place. Got a 7-5 victory last night. Kansas City had a 7-0 lead and had to hold on. Steven Matz, formerly of the New York Mets, has pitched well for Toronto. He's 2-0 for the Blue Jays right now. They're 6-7, and Matz has both their wins. Mike Minor, remember Mike Minor, the old left-hander from the A's and Texas Rangers? He's going for the Royals tonight. He's a home underdog. They're a half a game better than the Indians right now in the AL Central. Minnesota Twins are in last right now. They are going to Anaheim to take on the LA Angels, who lost 2 out of 3 against Kansas City. I cannot figure out the Angels with all that hitting. They don't have a real good bullpen right now. Even Iglesias has blown a couple of saves. Casey's favorite pitcher, Andrew Heaney, going tonight against Thor. 6 o'clock tomorrow night on the West Coast on Fox Sports 1. A little plug for the Angels Twins is where I'll be in Anaheim tomorrow.
So who will be watching that game?
A little interesting to see how this American League. Casey said it. They're all around 500 right now. A couple of teams above and a couple of teams below. Some teams you may not expect. We said the other day I think Charlie and I said yesterday that the NL East is totally inverted in terms of standings, where the Yankees, Rays, and Blue Jays are. The Blue Jays are second, and the Boston Red Sox, who nobody thought was going to do very well, just got their 9-game winning streak snapped yesterday by the Twins. Where do you take it from here, Casey, on the American League?
Well, let's start with I'm just seeing some postponements come in before we start giving out picks. White Sox, Red Sox have been postponed, as have the Blue Jays and Royals, which is a shame because I actually would have tuned that one in on my MLB app. Mets and Rockies as well. This is what happens. I remember Charlie blasting this at the beginning of the season while we're playing games in the middle of April when you still got literal spring snowstorms going on across the entire. Hey, baseball, you understand you have a lot of teams that play indoors, right? That's how you should be scheduling the early part of the season, and you can figure out the rest a little bit later, because between COVID and this, it's a really good thing that they have this weird schedule where teams are having like Sundays off and like Wednesdays and things that you're just not accustomed to. So they have a chance to make those things. I think
Casey,
it's a great American League.
Casey, let me just jump in here for a second. I like to read this day in baseball history things, and I believe it was 1940. It was on this date that Bob Feller threw the only opening day no-hitter in the history of Major League Baseball. I want to repeat the opening part of that. The only opening day no-hitter on April the 16th. Okay, because they had the good sense then to only have 154 game schedule, so they didn't start in the middle of the stinking winter.
Yeah, no, agreed. And it's not going to go away either, especially for some of those Midwestern and Eastern markets. The AL slate is nice this weekend. I mean, Twins and Angels is intriguing. Vasu kind of pointed out the strengths and weaknesses of each of those teams. And the Heaney factor certainly will have me looking at that team from the Midwest tonight. I can tell you that. Astros, Mariners, we kind of discussed the COVID issues that Houston is dealing with. And I also like the point about the anxiety, because if you're a guy that's actively playing for the Astros who's been around those other 5 guys, you got to be thinking, well, the lag time on this disease can be 7 to 14 days. So God knows if somebody else ends up getting ill and that affects their lineup. That's probably why that line is almost a pick 'em, when if the Astros were 100% healthy, they'd certainly be bigger road favorites. And then, of course, my Oakland A's, the hottest team right now in the American League, winners of 5 straight games, coming back home to take on the Detroit Tigers. And I like this matchup. They got another victory last night. Their bats have really woken up, and their starting pitching has locked them in enough to keep them in the game close. This is another one where you got to be careful with that total at over under 8.5, because weather could be a factor as far as that marine layer, as I believe they call it there. But all in all, I think this is a good feel them out weekend for these teams. And I think, Chuck, the Twins and Angels, that one just is fascinating to me, because Minnesota is such a great regular season franchise, like kind of the industry standard for the last 10 years of being a good regular season team and competing to get in the playoffs, and then not doing very well in the playoffs. Contrast that with the Angels, who have a team on paper that should be amazing, but just cannot win consistently because they're being let down by their bullpen. I think that 7-5 start's a little bit of a mirage. And I know my good buddy Paul, who's a huge lifetime Angels fan, is not going to like to hear this, but I don't think that they're that good. I mean, I like their offense. I really don't like a lot of their pitching. And I think that they'll come back to earth a little bit. And the AL West, Chuck, is just so intriguing because you throw in this stupid COVID issue, the Mariners overachieving, the A's kind of riding the ship. There's going to be a lot of movement coming up in the next few weeks. Hell, I didn't even mention the Rangers, who've been playing good baseball as well.
and that means we know that there's going to be a plague of some kind new coming across the state of Texas when that happens. But Casey, interestingly enough, the Twins are 5-0 straight up in their last 5 games when playing in Anaheim. So somehow they like coming to the West Coast and playing near Disneyland. Now, I don't know if anybody's broken it to them yet that they can't go to Disneyland.
They're not residents.
Because, first of all, it's not open. And number 2, they're not residents. So they can't go yet. But they obviously like playing out there. But the Angels have been doing well. They've been winning straight up at home. They're 8-3 in their last 11 games at home. So, you know, they're a good team. But, you know, it's interesting you would say that. Both these teams, every year, we come into the beginning of the season and we say, man, these teams on paper are winners. Now, the Angels always start to begin to disappoint us. What do we say? Around the 4th of July. And we go, what's happening to them? And Minnesota, they get us to the playoffs, and then they disappoint us. And at some point, you have to believe there is some missing element there that at some point you say somebody's going to figure it out, and they're going to put in the right player. They're going to plug in the right player, and one of these two teams is going to get over the top of the mountain, and they're going to make it happen. You know what? Somehow, I don't think it's this year. Maybe I'm just too burned out on saying these two teams should do really well, because I've said it so many times, and at the end of the season, they've made me look so stupid. I'm not willing to say that anymore.
Vasu, let me ask you this. Yeah. As far as, I don't know that much about the Twins ownership, but clearly this is a franchise that isn't afraid to invest in itself. They've got the new ballpark. They bought themselves a couple of just powerful home run hitters, and they've done their best to attract pitching. Are they on the cusp of maybe becoming one of those breakout franchises, considering how we feel like the Indians are going to fall off in the Central, the rest of the Central? It's okay, but it feels like there's room for a team to kind of go out there and grab it by the balls, if you will. And it's not going to be the Kansas City Royals, as much as I like that overbet I made in the preseason. But what do you make of the Twins franchise as far as, you know, the ownership, the fan base, and wanting to invest to get them over that hump and break that double-digit losing streak in the playoffs?
Well, yeah, the playoff thing, I can't even explain the playoff thing, because they're too good to lose that many games in a row. And I don't know if they just get tightened up in the playoffs, whatever the case is. Now this Andrelton Simmons deal going on COVID. They lost their closers from last year. They've got Alex Colome, who was with the White Sox. He blew a save the other day against Seattle when Kyle Seager hit the 3-run home run. They're injured from an offensive standpoint. Arias got sick the other day. He's one of their best hitters. They're going to get Josh Donaldson back. Nelson Cruz sat out game 2 of the doubleheader the other day because he wasn't feeling well. It was non-COVID related. You have to say that every time now somebody gets ill, whether it's COVID related or non-COVID related. I think if they get their bats going, and Charlie said it, if it starts to get warm in late April and early May with Minnesota, I mean, they're called the boomsticks for a reason, because they can hit the ball, and that stadium's designed for home run hitters. I mean, you go up and down that lineup in Minnesota, and they've got guys that can just knock the ball all over the place. I mean, for goodness sake, that confidence that they had in 2019 going through that season with 300-plus home runs. I think they ended up with 308 home runs in 2019 with Donaldson and Cruz, and you've got Max Kepler in the outfield, Simmons at shortstop. You can pick it. He'll have some good offensive games. This guy Luis Arias, if you haven't seen him play, he's like a mini Rod Carew with the bat. I mean, he just moves around and magically hits from line to line all over the place. So it'll be interesting to see. And they've got power behind the plate. Defensively now with Simmons there, it can only improve their defense. I moved Polanco, who was not a good defensive player, from shortstop to second base. Now he'll have to go back to shortstop while Simmons is out on this COVID deal. So it'll be interesting. But as far as the rest of the American League goes, I'll be interested in the AL West tonight. The Oakland A's, Detroit Tigers, Frankie Montas. See if Montas comes out. Jose Urena, who's most famous for hitting Ronald Acuna 6 times in a row. I think with the Miami Marlins, that's basically what he's famous for, because his ERA is not making him famous in Detroit, definitely not in a positive way. And then the Seattle Mariners with Kikuchi going tonight, the Astros without a third of their lineup being out. I think this is a good chance for the Mariners to kind of match up with them. Astros have not hit left-handed pitching this year, even though traditionally they have. And with Bregman and Altuve out, that could help the Mariners going into this weekend. Played well because Kyle Seager is on fire right now. They took 2 out of 3 from the Orioles in Baltimore, a place that they never play well. So I'll be interested in that. Little memory for me, the old days of the early 80s, Oakland and Detroit. Go up from San Jose to see Detroit when the 80s Tigers were winning, and my friend Lance Parrish was playing for them. So the Tigers and A's bringing back memories of the Coliseum for me going every year. And, of course, the Dodgers Padres in the National League. I could talk about that all day, but that's a big series going on in the week. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to hit the NBA right after a 30-second break. You're watching the Make the Money and Run podcast on Stables Media and on Facebook, Stables Media YouTube, and on Facebook Live. If you miss any of the live broadcasts, you can download and subscribe on Apple and Spotify or anywhere you get your podcasts. He's Casey Freelove. That's Charlie O. I'm Vasu Vadaparty. Back in 30 seconds to Make the Money and Run podcast for today. back to the Make the Money and Run podcast. Vasu Party, Charlie O, Casey Freelove. You can catch us Monday, Thursday, Fridays, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific, right here on Facebook Live, the Stables Media YouTube page. If you miss any of the live broadcast, download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Apple and Spotify are two of the best to get them. Thanks to everybody on Facebook this whole week that's been on with us, and also the Stables Media YouTube page, all the reviews we've been getting. We appreciate it. I wanted to bring this story up because Casey was not here yesterday because it has to do with our friend Pete Rose, who is just turned 80 the other day and has a partnership with You Pick Trade. Casey, Charlie and I already talked about this yesterday. For $89 a month, Pete Rose is signed with You Pick Trade based in Guadalajara, Mexico. They had a partnership with the Vegas Golden Knights. The Golden Knights ended that partnership within 3 days, and they hired him to give his picks, and he said he's going to give picks, including baseball, even though he says he's not going to be betting on baseball this year. So what's your take on Pete Rose here, Casey?
Well, I like him a lot. I've met him when I worked in Las Vegas. He used to sign baseballs over at Caesars occasionally. He's a nice guy. He's knowledgeable about the game. He's passionate about the game. And I know a lot of people hate him. And I have an issue with a guy sitting in a dugout betting on games, even if it wasn't his own team. That's a little weird, maybe a little unethical, if you will. But look, we're in the new era of Major League Baseball. I don't think this guy's getting in to the Hall of Fame while he's alive. I just don't feel like Rob Manfred has any kind of impetus to do that. So why not make some cash? I mean, as he said, I'm not betting on the games. I'm giving you picks if you sign up for my service for only $89 a month, which I think is a pretty reasonable price. I think it was per month. But look, you're 80. You know that you're probably not going to get into the Hall of Fame. You're trying to use your fame to attract attention to a company that's probably paying you pretty handsomely, I would speculate, to get out there and make all those picks. So I'm okay with it. And baseball is in an interesting spot, as are all sports, Chuck, as far as dancing that line between we're welcoming gambling in. Like, for example, the Cubs are going to have like an actual almost casino at Wrigley Field, and the line saying, well, we want to make sure that gambling and our guys aren't gambling on it. The bottom line is gambling is taking over this country. And thank you, Arizona legislators, for pushing that state right on through as well. Looking forward to them joining the new union of legalized sports gambling. But he's the most controversial player for people of a certain age, Charlie. And I really love the guy. So I say do whatever the hell you want, Pete. You're 80 years old. Enjoy your life.
Well, Casey, having grown up in Dayton, Ohio, and having cried crocodile tears when I found out my mother threw away my entire collection, including a dozen Pete Rose rookie cards that were in absolute pristine condition. I couldn't agree with you more. Poor Pete's not going to get into the Hall of Fame until the year after he passes. Now that baseball is in bed with gambling concerns, and you're right, there's going to be a casino at Wrigley Field for all intents and purposes. Let Pete do what he wants to do. I hope, I told Vasu this yesterday, I'm a little worried about this outfit that he's getting involved with, because was it the Golden Knights, Vasu?
Yeah, Golden Knights, right?
We're going to get involved with these guys. 5 days later, they jumped out. And of course, you're pretty well connected with guys who know the business, and there's got a reason why they jumped in and jumped out. So I'm hoping that this doesn't turn out to be another one of Pete's fiascos, but we know his track record is not strong. So I'm hoping that it turns out all right for him. But those guys of those ages, they need money. Pete never, these guys, we talk about, oh, well, they were baseball players. They must have made big money. No, they didn't make big money.
No, not at all.
I would bet, I'm not sure that Pete ever had a contract that took him over $1 million a year. He might have, but not much. Johnny Bench just had to sell off a bunch of his memorabilia to try to pay for a couple of his kids to go to college. And fortunately, a good friend of his bought it all and then gave it back to him in a tremendous gesture of generosity that I thought was great. But that's where those guys are. Hey, Pete, knock yourself out. Hope it works.
All right, Bossy Battle Party, Casey Free left, Charlie O. We'll hit some potpourri at the end, but let's get to the NBA here. Got about 20 minutes left in the show, so let's hit the NBA West right now. The Utah Jazz playing against the Indiana Pacers. I don't have the update on the score yet, but they lead the Western Conference 41 wins. Phoenix with their win over Sacramento. By the way, Phoenix the only favorite that didn't cover last night in 4 games, and then you got the Clippers. The Nuggets, I don't know whether to feel sorry for the Nuggets because of Jamal Murray or they're just coming out and beating people even after the Murray injury. They're at 35-20. The Lakers do not cover 6.5 without Davis and LeBron back against Boston last night. Portland is a 2.5-point favorite at San Antonio. Why, I say, I don't know. And then Dallas on Luka Doncic's 3 points. Casey, we talked about it yesterday. I'm sure you saw the game winner from Doncic. Grayson Allen, a 90% free throw shooter, misses 2 free throws and allows the door to be ajar for Doncic to make that 3-pointer. I mean, I don't know what Grayson Allen was thinking at the free throw line. He must have been tripping. Bump. See if you guys get that joke. Take a little bit. All right, take a little bit. Grayson Allen been known to trip players at Duke and in the NBA as well too. Must have been tripping at the free throw line. And we'll do it on loop and see if you get it the second time around. Yeah. But anyway, Dallas is right.
Like Grayson Allen. I don't like.
And it's not going to be any better the second time around.
Memphis a favorite tonight. They are playing. I forget who they're playing, but they're on the road and they're playing. They're at Chicago tonight, who lost Zach LaVine to COVID. That's 27.5 points a game lost. Chicago lost to Orlando in the Vucevic return. The Orlando Magic go into Chicago and beat them, and that's not a good look for the Chicago Bulls being in 10th place. We'll get to the East in a second. But Golden State with a big victory last night. They're at 500, and then San Antonio plays tonight. They're the 2.5-point underdog to Portland. Casey, I'll let you take the West. Take it wherever you want for the next few minutes.
Yeah, well, first off, since if you're listening live on Facebook, the Jazz have outscored the Pacers 45-30 in the second half, and they now lead 101-99 with 7 minutes left. So that shows you how
they're a 10.5-point favorite, by the way, for people.
Yeah, so we'll see if the Jazz keep steamrolling their way to a cover at that point. That's a fun one. As far as the West, you just can't make sense of it. I mean, the Jazz are number 1, the Suns are number 2, the Clippers, then the Nuggets, who had, of course, a season-changing injury. I read that their odds of making the Western Conference Finals dropped from like 19% down to 4% as soon as Jamal Murray's knee kind of caved there. And that was an ugly look for Michael Malone and the team because Golden State really kind of blew the doors off him. I know they were only down by 7 when he injured himself on a non-contact play, but God, I just hate seeing that. I mean, we've seen it so many times in the NBA, these untouched injuries that end up affecting careers. And I am a big fan of Jamal Murray. I always liked him at Kentucky. And I kind of like watching the Denver Nuggets. I think Jokic possibly put right up there as one of the leading favorites to win the MVP because he's playing really solid basketball. Wiggle room teams are going to need as far as home court advantage. I mean, I've been watching all week. I watch my Kings lose every single time because I'm a sucker for punishment. The Warriors are certainly a much more entertaining product. And I guess we could start a Curry appreciation thread here, guys, because he done as of late is nothing short.
Go ahead, Charlie. We're losing Casey in and out here.
Yeah, in the West, Vasu, it's pretty interesting. I mean, first of all, we just need to lop off the bottom 4: Sacramento, Oklahoma City, Minnesota, and Houston. They're done. Interesting factoid about Sacramento. Twice this season, they went on a run where they won 7 out of 8 and then went on a 9-game consecutive losing streak.
Look at teams from the Western Conference. Basically, it's kind of a interconference weekend. You do have Denver and Houston going at each other. That total roads, perhaps that's something you take a look at. Vasu talked about the puzzling Portland-San Antonio point spread. I can't figure it out either. The total's gone over in 5 of Portland's last 6 on the road and 8 of their last 10 when playing against the Spurs. So maybe that's somewhere you want to look if you're going to get in on that game. And then I also think that the Knicks and Mavericks is pretty interesting. New York's on a 5-game win streak. They've got a bunch of unders as far as their series. But overall, the NBA has done a good job keeping me engaged. I am interested in what's happening. I don't feel like we have a predetermined winner. And I also wanted to say, I guess we'll talk Eastern Conference. Best of luck to LaMarcus Aldridge. I was really disappointed to see what happened. It's very unfortunate. And a regular heartbeat causes him to retire from the Brooklyn Nets. Not that he was going to be a huge impact player, but he's a likable guy, and he's a guy that you knew was going to bring it every single night that he was out there on the court. So I think obviously health comes first, especially 35 years old, but I'm a little not going to be able to see him, make a run for a ring, whether we don't like that they stack that team or not. You never want to see somebody go out in that fashion.
Casey, you're going to have to reload and come back in. You muted in and out a little bit. We didn't get all of it, but we're going to go to Chuck here for the Eastern Conference. So see if you can come back. Oh, there you go. Okay. Let's take the East, Charlie. Let's take the East here a little bit. The Philadelphia 76ers still one game up on Brooklyn, even though Brooklyn is coming in. The Bucks with that win over Atlanta last night separate third and fourth. Boston with the win over the Lakers last night. Did you read the story about Jason Tatum after the COVID issue? Now he has to use an inhaler all the time for a 25-year-old kid. That's pretty scary considering how COVID is dictating this. But 30 and 26 for the Celtics. The Knicks are 29 and 27. Miami 28 and 27, Charlotte 27 and 27, and then Indiana, who's playing right now. And then, of course, we talked about the Bulls. Their loss to Orlando the other night. They're in 10th place. And then I think there's pretty much a separation. So you're looking at 10 teams right now going into the playoff structure, just depending on the order from 4 to 10. But everything is pretty close from 4 to 10.
Yeah, it really is. Vasu, it was really interesting. I happened to catch Inside the NBA on TNT this morning, and Charles Barkley made a very interesting statement, and he said everybody better pray that the Wizards don't make it into the number 10 spot, because he said if they do, they could make it into a number 8 spot, and if they make it into a number 8 spot, they are capable of winning a series. And it wasn't just him that felt that way. I believe it was Doc Rivers who had also said that, because they just feel that between Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrooks, that they have just been starting to play and gel at this point in a way that they haven't been doing so far this season. And they said everybody needs to pray that they don't make the play-ins, because if they do, they could be scary.
Well, Charlie, I mean, all these teams from 6 to 10 in both the West and East are playing like it's their playoff life, because you pretty much got the first 4 all set up, and now it's just a matter of seeding, and you don't want to be in that 7 to 10 if you feel like that there's a chance that you're going to lose, because you want to get into that first round, or the second round, as they call it, the post-play-in tournament. So let me get this. Let's see some producing here and get Casey back in here as we get this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was very interesting. I watched that Philadelphia-Brooklyn game the other night, and, Philadelphia looked as strong as we wanted them to look. They looked every bit of what we hoped the 76ers would look like, except for the fact, I have to tell you, those may have been the ugliest uniforms that I have ever seen in my life. I love the Liberty Bell. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a patriot, but whoever designed that uniform, it was terrible.
That'll be interesting to see. What are you looking at for the weekend in terms of games? I'm looking at this Warriors-Celtics game. The Jazz and Lakers could have been the other ABC game, Warriors and Celtics on ABC. That's why they moved it to 1:30 so ESPN could get that. And then the Suns and Spurs. The Spurs playing pretty well as far as the Saturday games. You got any specific games tonight or tomorrow that you're looking at besides the ones we just talked about?
You know what? I'm interested in that Warriors Boston game on Saturday night, just because I'm interested to see if the Warriors can keep it up on the road. They've been playing pretty good. That's going to be a lift up in the competition for them. So I'm interested in that particular game to see how they do there. The Warriors are playing better basketball, but they've got to play better basketball because they're going to be a play-in team no matter what they do. So I'm interested to see what they can do and whether or not they can sustain that and what that will do to them because they're going to have to exert a lot of effort to stay as a play-in team. and I'm interested to see how that will do to them once the play-ins start on May the 17th.
Casey, we'll give you the last word on the NBA in terms of what you like in the Eastern Conference. What do you think about the Eastern Conference, and what games are you looking forward to this weekend, tonight, or tomorrow?
Yeah, I apologize. I'm going to go suplex our internet router. If you want to watch the post game, I'm going to literally go rip wiring out of the wall. God, I hate our internet here sometimes. Sorry, folks. You know, I hate
Don't worry about it.
Professional. Anyway, let's take a look quickly.
All part of the new adjustment period, Casey.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to have to adjust my boss's wallet, make sure he's paying the bills on this thing. Sixers and Nets, still the two favorites, in my opinion. I think the Atlanta Hawks are very intriguing. Nobody had them going 30-26. They're going to hit a nice over ticket on their win total for some folks this year. New York Knicks start to slip back a little bit. I think the Miami Heat are rounding into form. The Bulls without LaVine are in trouble. And really the top 8 in the East are probably the 8 best teams that are remaining there. Might actually be what the playoff grid looks like. For this evening, I think Clippers-Sixers is kind of the main event. We'll have to wait and see. Here's one issue I have with the NBA lately is these injury reports. If you're gambling, you better wait till pretty near tip time before you start putting these bets in, because if you're dealing with the Nets or the Clippers, those are the two biggest offenders. They're constantly adjusting their lineup, so you don't know who exactly is going to be on the court as far as personnel. I think that's a good line at 3. Grizzlies-Bulls tonight. I'm going to have a play on that game because I think that the Bulls are just in a free fall. They might not even end up in the 10 hole and have a chance to play their way into the playoffs. Heat should get a win in Minnesota against the Timberwolves. And the Knicks and Mavericks game is intriguing. Interesting, they adjust the line. The last time these two played last week, Dallas was -3. They covered that one. And then the Knicks now getting 6 points. So they're trying to entice you to jump on the Knickerbockers, who still at 29-27 are a team that I can't quite figure out, Charlie. I think the future odds haven't adjusted that much, despite the fact that Aldridge is out. Brooklyn is the clear consensus favorite, basically getting you even money to win the East. Bucks have moved ahead of the Sixers at 3.5-1, then Philly at 5-1. So it's still sorting itself out. I think we're going to see the top tier teams in the East for sure going deep, whereas in the West, because of the Laker factor, we could see a little tinkering still in the playoffs as far as low seeds having a chance to win.
Yeah, you know, and you make a good point. There's a real question of who are the Lakers going to be come playoffs, and that's the question that we're all kind of sitting back going, all right, what's that roster going to look like? And I don't think they're going to tell us.
No.
I think we're just going to have to sit there and be surprised when the roster's submitted, and we're going to go, oh. And then we can go from there because we're not going to know, and that literally is going to steal a term from baseball. That's going to be the wild card there. That's going to make a difference in how that looks. I agree with you. I think that we're pretty well looking at the East being what the East is. Everybody sure feels like that Brooklyn has been anointed. I don't know. I'm not worried about when the 3 guys get back and them playing together. They've already proved they can play together. I just want to know if they're all going to be healthy enough to play together at one time. Is this load management or is this nagging injury? I don't think we have a definitive answer to that. And that's kind of what I'm ready to see. But you know what? The one thing that I have seen about Brooklyn, it seems like if 2 of them are healthy, that's enough to propel them. So maybe it's enough if 2 of them are on the court of the big 3, that's enough to carry them through. So maybe 2 play, 1 rest, and that's enough to keep them going.
That's about a party. Casey Freelove, Charlie O, the Make the Money and Run podcast. We're at the point in the program where everybody's waiting for us to give our worldwide winners, not the www on the internet, but the www worldwide winners. We start with Casey on picks here. As post them right there. You check the NBA odds and the lines at the bottom on the ticker as we roll them across. Go ahead, Casey. Casey's internet maybe again. Might have to go to Charlie here.
As you got 5 minutes left, I'm going to hop out. My internet connection sucks. Put my picks on the board, and good luck to everybody this weekend.
All right, Casey. We'll talk to you later.
See you,
Casey.
Casey.
So Casey's going to go with the Memphis Grizzlies at -3.5. He's going to go with the Twins with listed pitchers -110 against the Angels. The Dodgers listed pitchers with Walker Buehler. Ryan Weathers, the opener tonight for San Diego, minus 145. And then the Mariners on the run line, plus 1.5, minus 60 at home against the Houston Astros. Charlie, let me find yours as well here, and I'll let you take it away.
Okay, I had to make an adjustment because my original pick was going to be in the first 5 over 4 between Toronto and Kansas City until it decided to rain. So we're going to that game has been postponed. So I'm going to change up there for my baseball pick. I'm going to go. I'm going to move over to that Tigers A's game, and I am going to go over 8.5 in that game. That is against the public sentiment there. The overwhelming public money is going under 8.5 on that. I'm going over 8.5 in that game. By the way, just because I'm a weather guy, it is going to be with the marine layer, but the wind blowing at 14 miles an hour out to right field. So there you go. For those of you who know the Ring Central Coliseum, you know what that means in that particular game. And my NBA game, I'm going to be also looking at that Memphis Chicago game, and I am going over on the points total at 220.5.
Thanks to James Little on Facebook that just subscribed to us. He's looking for the NBA picks, so I'm going to put Casey's picks up there again. Memphis at 3.5, and then Charlie, Memphis, Chicago over 220.5. Go to my picks here. Let me find them here real quick. I've got 3 games going tonight. They're all in baseball. I'm going to go with the A's tonight on the 5-game winning streak. They've got the Detroit Tigers, even though Detroit just beat up on Houston. We know that Houston has issues, and the A's at home, they generally play well against Central teams. They're laying 182 with Frankie Montas. Miami Marlins tonight, they just took 3 out of 4 from Atlanta in Atlanta, and I know Atlanta's not playing all that great. They are winning still, last I checked, but they're plus 114 at home against the Giants, who have a great pitching staff, and right now they're hitting well. Nick Castano starting for the Miami Marlins. Everybody's going, who? He's one of the guys that came over from Arizona in the Zach Gallen deal. He might be able to. The Marlins have had a tough. Marlins have not had pretty good with the Giants in Miami from the standpoint of winning. Yankees lost 2 out of 3 at Tampa. Tampa struggling on the road. Nick Nelson going for the Yankees tonight, 156 over Tampa at home. And then, of course, the Dodgers, Walker Buehler in San Diego tonight. That offense, like I said at the beginning of the show, playing name that tune with how many runs you're going to score. They score 3, we'll get 4. They score 6, we'll get 7. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. They're 11-2 right now, and probably 6 of them have been comebacks for that period. One last story I want to get into, Charlie, is that Casey mentioned it. We talked about the Arizona legalizing sports gaming. It's going to be on off of reservations next year. But I wanted to give the breakdown and kind of get your get a quick take here. Actually, we're not going to have time for the quick take, but I just want to let everybody know what's going on. 20 states are legal now, 7 with bill passages. Utah, Idaho, Wisconsin, the only 3 with no legislation on the books, and the remaining 20 has introduced bills to be passed. So where are we going in a quick 30 seconds here, Charlie? Are we eventually going to get all 50 states in our lifetime?
Absolutely. I mean,
okay.
Everybody's got to look at it and say, hey, there's money to be made. And where there's money to be made, particularly for states that have eroding tax bases, it's too good. I mean, why wouldn't you? Are you going to let somebody else get the money? No, absolutely not. And that's the whole thing is you got to work with the Indian reservations in some of these states. You got to be able to work with the lottery commission. You got to work with the state governments. That's the best way to do it. So let's go. Utah, Idaho, and Wisconsin, they don't even have any bill in the legislation. Are you seeing what's going on in Colorado and Washington? Come on, let's go. We want to get this going. Just got a text from a friend of mine in Arizona saying that they noticed the bill passed and they're going to start putting kiosks in there by the end of the year, right around bowl season. They're going to be ready to go. All right, Charlie O., Casey Freelife, who had to duck out a little early with internet problems. I'm Vasu Party. Monday, Thursday, Fridays, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific for the Make the Money and Run podcast. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the games. And as always, good luck. We'll see you Monday, 4:15 on the Make the Money and Run podcast.